Not too far from here, there's a restaurant my family likes to go to, and every single time that we pull up into the parking lot, there's a lady who approaches our car asking us for money. And on the surface of it, she's not dressed very well. It's clear that she isn't eating very well and she's hungry. And so the symptom is a lack of material things. She doesn't have adequate clothing and adequate food. We in the West, in North America, are fundamentally materialist people. We think of the world in materialistic terms. We think of poverty as a lack of material things. We think the solution to poverty is to provide material things for people. But it's so interesting, if you ask poor people around the world what is poverty, they define it in very different ways. If you ask the poor, they will say things like, to be poor is to be full of shame, is to be embarrassed, is to be humiliated, is to feel less than human, is to feel like you're not really part of society. The poor describe their poverty, yeah, in material terms, but in far more psychological and social terms than most North Americans do. What the Bible teaches us is that God is fundamentally a relational being. He relates Father, Son, and Holy Ghost to Himself. And He's wired us in His image. We're wired for relationship as well. We are fundamentally relational beings. And what the Scriptures teach is that each human being has been given 4 key relationships that define really what it means to be human. Human beings are wired for a relationship with God, with ourselves, our self-image, our self-concept, a relationship with others, and finally a relationship with the rest of creation. And when these 4 relationships are working properly, we experience humanness in the way that God intended. Unfortunately, the fall of humanity into sin has broken and distorted those key relationships. That woman in the parking lot who doesn't have adequate clothing and food, that inadequacy in material things is rooted in something far deeper, the brokenness that she's experiencing in her relationships with God, self, others, and the rest of creation. So as we try to help her, we've got to come out of that framework saying her lack of things is really a symptom of something far deeper. We've got to get down to those deeper things to really help her. What I'm starting to realize, what the Lord is showing me, is that once we define poverty as being rooted in broken relationships, it's not just that lady in the parking lot who's lacking food who's poor, but that I too am poor. I've got 2 cars in the driveway, I've got a nice house. I'm not materially poor, but there's profound brokenness in my life. I'm not experiencing all that God intended for me. And so what I'm discovering as the director of the Chalmers Center and in my work with the materially poor is that I actually can't fix them. And I used to think that I could. I can't fix them. Only Jesus Christ can fix them. And I can't fix me. Only Jesus Christ can fix me. And so poverty alleviation isn't so much about me putting food in the hands of that beggar lady, as much as it's taking her hand and saying to her, I'm a beggar too, but I found the bread of life, and He can heal you and He can heal me too.